everyone. My name is Kimberly Guzman Barrientos, and today I'm going to be talking about chronic traumatic encephalopathy and its links to depression. So, what inspired me to do my research on CTE was the docu-series on Netflix about Aaron Hernandez, and at the end, they talk about how he was diagnosed with CTE and how that could have affected his decision making and his aggressiveness. So, what is chronic traumatic encephalopathy? So, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, as I'm going to be referring to it from now on, is a neurodegenerative disease that is often associated with traumatic brain injury, like what is experienced in contact collision sports, blast explosions, and car accidents, and even domestic violence. The symptoms vary from person to person, but some of the major ones are memory impairment, aggressiveness, impulsiveness, and depression. So, some more background about CTE. In the 20th century, it was described as drunk punch or dementia pugilistica. It was described as drunk punch because a lot of the people that experienced CTE were boxers. CTE can only be diagnosed by examining the brain post-mortem during autopsy, and CTE is also closely related to Alzheimer's disease. So, as I have mentioned, CTE can only be diagnosed after death and during autopsy. CTE is also related to Alzheimer's disease because they both are known for having these protein deposits in the brain, but the researchers wanted to see if the deposits were different and what made them different to see if they could be diagnosed differently and to tell them apart. So what they did is that they took a group of people that had been exposed to traumatic brain injury, mostly football players, and a control group that had not been exposed to traumatic brain injury. They performed a PET scan on them and wanted to compare to see if they were able to see a difference. They found significant results. Those who have been exposed to traumatic brain injury have this or more deposits of this protein in their brain than those who have not. And they also found that the way that the protein is distributed is different than from those that are affected by Alzheimer's disease. CT in football. CT has commonly been associated with contact collision sports like American football, boxing, ice hockey, and soccer. This study was made possible by examining the brains of former football players, military service veterans that had been exposed to blast explosions, and domestic violence victims. They compared the brains of these participants to a control group that had not been exposed to any kind of brain trauma. Once they examined the both groups, they found significant results. They found that the group that had been exposed to brain trauma had levels or had the presence of a protein called pTau that is closely associated with CTE. They also found significant results in the group that had been exposed to brain trauma. They found that the longer periods of time that someone was exposed to brain trauma, the more likely that they were to have CTE. For example, someone that had been exposed to, let's say, football for 1 year was less likely to have CTE than someone that had been exposed to football for 15 years. So in this figure, you're able to tell the difference between the brain segments of someone that has been exposed to brain trauma and someone that has not. B is someone that has not been exposed to brain trauma, while C is someone that has been exposed to brain trauma, like those in the study that were football players. Those red dots that you can see on the screen are the deposits of the protein that I've been mentioning. So CTE and behavioral changes. Just a warning, this is going to talk about animal testing, so if you're not comfortable hearing about it, then I recommend you don't listen. So Matt Career and partners wanted to find evidence to see if CTE or how CTE affected behavior. So they took a group of lab rats and separated them into three groups. One was exposed to a placebo surgery, one was exposed to a single injury, and the other one was exposed to triple injury repetitively. So they would administer the injury by hitting them with about a 1 pound weight in the head, and they found significant results between those that had been injured the most and those that had not, like the placebo surgery group. They found that those rats had higher levels of anxiety, and they also found higher levels of the protein in the rats' brains after they were sacrificed and the brains were analyzed. So CTE and brain chemistry. This group of researchers wanted to analyze if there was a difference between the neurochemistry of someone that had experienced brain trauma and someone that had not been exposed to brain trauma. They took a group of 5 contact collision sports athletes, mostly football players, once again, and the athletes underwent psychiatric evaluation to see if the symptoms that they were experiencing were linked to CTE. They then performed an MRI on them to see if to find evidence for the different neurochemistry. They found significant results in the neurochemistry of former contact collision sports athletes and the control group. Most notably, they found a difference in glutamate that has previously been linked to depression. So this figure of the MRI, you can see the difference between the control group and the brain trauma group. You can see there is a bit of a difference between the neurochemistry of both groups of someone that has been exposed to brain trauma and someone that has not been exposed to brain trauma. In this slide, you can see the resources that I use for my research. Thank you for watching.